Okay, so welcome to Jacques and anybody else that might be attending later. Just let me start this off too by saying that just a heads up for next week, we're actually not going to have the go-to session at the same time, just because I have to actually be somewhere. I have to be at UCF actually next Tuesday night. So we're probably going to have the go-to session on Wednesday of next week. So that's just a heads up. Also, just a little bit of an announcement here. We've been having a lot of trouble in the last few weeks with archiving these go-to sessions. The problem is that they archive, but for whatever reason, in recent weeks, they've been taking up a lot of space. I mean, like about at least two or three times larger than what they used to be. So I'm not sure if that's like a problem with the go-to or they haven't been any longer in terms of the content that we've been talking about. But just in case that happens, though, if we can't archive this, then that's okay because you can go back to previous months that we have archived. They're all pretty much the same. We haven't changed any content. There might be, on some of those old ones, there might be occasionally, like in times when there's a holiday or something like that, we might say, oh, there's an extension or something like this, or we have to rearrange things. But for the most part, all those go-to sessions should be the same. So again, we're going to try to archive this tonight, but if for some reason it becomes like this huge file that we can't put on uh, up on the web on FSO, then just go ahead and check those old documents. In fact, the one from last week was so large we couldn't even put on YouTube. I mean, I guess we could have broken it up, but even YouTube said it was too large to put on there. So if you tried the link for last week, it was not working. But that's okay. We'll try again tonight, but if not, then you can always go back and check out the previous archives. And tonight, for you online students, remember that your blogs are due this week, at this Sunday night at midnight. So make sure to get those in. And this is just kind of a reminder of what you need to do. I know that some people have already submitted theirs, but if you haven't, here's kind of the breakdown of it. Just make sure that they're 300 words each. You need to do two of them for this class. I know that that's different than some of your previous classes, but for this class, you have to do two. And okay, Jacques, you're having difficulty with the audio. Can you hear me now? Let me type this in. Let me go ahead and see if I can do something here. The audio should be working. Okay. That's okay, Jacques, if you have to restart. I'm not sure if it's your computer or mine, but try doing that. And just to make sure, though, I'm looking here at my audio, and it looks to be working. And okay, it looks like Jacques logged off a little bit, and I'm gonna wait a minute before we get started here, just to see if he can get back on, and maybe that'll do the trick. And but as he's doing that, though, just a reminder for you online students. I know that I think Jacques is a on-campus student, so I can go ahead and talk a little bit about the online for the online students. Your discussion this week, if you had a chance to take a look at it, it's just to go out and look at some print-on-demand companies. We gave you some examples there in the discussion board, but you are welcome to obviously check out some on your own. Obviously, some new ones pop up all the time. And it's just the discussion for this week is just to go out there, try to do some investigating and try to do some research and try to figure out which ones are good, which ones are not so good, what are some of the advantages of some, what are some of the disadvantages of them, how do they all work, what are the royalty rates, will they get you on iTunes, things like that, okay? And just do some research and try to maybe offer a compare and contrast of a couple of them and kind of explain like which ones that you would like or you would prefer and which ones you would kind of stay away from and why. So like those of you on the music side, you might I mean, one of the more popular ones, of course, is TuneCore, right? But then there's other people, other musicians that like CD Baby, okay? Either one is fine. There's no right answer, or wrong answer as to which one you like better, or if you find something else that you like better, like create space or something like that. There's no right or wrong answer. Just go ahead and explain that in the discussion, right? And as always, make sure to do 2 postings to get the full credits, the initial post and also at least 1 response post to somebody. And still waiting for Jacques to log back in. And a lot of times when this happens, I think it's on my computer, but apparently my computer says that it's the mic and speakers are both on, and I can see the dial going back and forth. So I don't think it's my computer this time. But we'll see if Jacques can log back on. And while we're waiting, I guess we'll go ahead and get started here. And I'll be sure to monitor the screen here to see if he does show up. And but for this week, what we're going to take a look at is Project 3, right? And later in the session, I'll show you some examples of previous student work. And okay, so it looks like Jacques is logging back on here. Just going to wait a second before he. Let's see if he can hear me now. Okay, Jacques, it looks like you're logged back on now. Can you hear me now? Just type in the chat box if you can. Maybe not. Let me just type here. Okay, Jacques, we're going to try this again. In fact, let me go ahead here and unmute you here for a second. Okay. Jacques, can you hear me now? It's kind of funny because I could actually hear you when I unmuted you. Hey, Jacques, I have you on unmuted right now, so can you hear me now, or? Okay, looks like Jesse is logging in too. Let's see if they can hear me. And I tell you what, while we're waiting, and I apologize for the tech problems here, let me go ahead here and okay, Jacques says no. Okay, hold on. I'm going to check my settings here just to make sure. I'm going to go to my system preferences here, and I'm just going to check to make sure that the sound is good on my ends. Okay. And it looks like it is. Jesse, looks like you just logged in. Are you able to hear me okay? I have everybody on mute, but can you type in the chat box if you can hear me? Okay, Jesse, you still can't hear me? That's odd. I don't know what the issue might be. Okay, Jesse and Jacques, I have you both on unmute, and actually I can hear both of you guys, but you guys can't hear me? Jesse, can you hear me okay? Here, actually, you know what? Wait, hold on. Okay, I think that'll work. Okay, can you guys hear me now? Okay? Okay. Yeah, I forgot that's my mistake too because it's not my fault, but I think that sometimes these go-to sessions, sometimes you have to mute yourself and then unmute you. So for whatever reason, apologize for the tech delay for that, but looks like everything is working now. Okay, so let me just go back for a second. Okay, so just for the online students, remember that your blog post has to be 300 words. Remember, for this class, we do 2 of them. I know that's different from your previous classes, but in this class, we do 2 of them. People have been asking, like, do they have to relate to this class? No, but they do have to relate to the entertainment industry in general, right? So it doesn't have to relate to publishing and distribution, although it certainly could, and that's what you're studying this month. So I mean, it would make sense if you wanted to do like a blog post on some of the Google Doc things that you're finding, things like that. But it doesn't have to be that. But that's remember for you online students, remember that's due Sunday. Okay, so this might be a little bit review for Jacques and maybe um, the rest of anybody that's in the on-ground class that might be coming into this as well. But so I apologize if this is kind of rehashed a little bit from yesterday. But let's take a look here at like what Kim did, and I'm going to kind of segue this into Project 3, and I'm going to show you some examples of some student work for Project 3. And Jacques and Jesse, I know that you were having difficulty with the audio, and so I assume probably everybody else might have that might be watching this on the archive. That's okay. Just a reminder, or just a heads up for, I mentioned this, that next week we're not going to have the go-to session at the same time because I have to be at UCF actually at on Tuesday night. So we'll probably have it Wednesday. So that's just a heads up. And then also kind of a heads up, next week's session will probably be a little bit short because we're not really going to be covering any new material because remember for Project 3, you guys have until this week and then also next week. So next week, there's not really going to be any new material or new assignments with the exception of the online students. We'll go over your discussion for next week, but next week's session will probably be a little bit shorter and we'll talk about Project 3, but obviously I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight and I'm going to show you some examples of some student projects that we did. Okay, so let's look a little bit at what Kim did. So for what you guys have to do for Project 3 is take that exact same content that you did for Project 2, right? Whatever it is, a film treatment, a book proposal, TV treatment, a game project, a music project, whatever it might be, right? You're going to take that same exact content for Project 2, only we're going to kind of eschew the agent side. We're going to not send it to the agents, or we're going to assume that maybe the agent didn't want it, right? So what you're going to do for Project 3 is going to take that content and self-publish it, right? And as Kim probably mentioned in the presentation yesterday, this is kind of a new thing. Like about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, this didn't exist because when people thought of the word self-publishing, that kind of had a bad connotation with it because of all the bad things that have happened in the past with vanity presses and things like that. But the cool thing is that in recent years, this new self-publishing revolution has come in. And this is kind of a cool thing because we'll talk about this next week, but there's an author, for example, by the name of Amanda Hawking, right? And she took her work to various agents, various publishers, and they all rejected her, right? So she said, okay, I'm going to do this self-publishing model. I'm going to follow this. And now, guess what? She's a multimillionaire. Her latest book is now being adapted by the guy that adapted District 9. And so, and she did it all by herself, right? She wasn't able to find an agent, right? So we'll talk more about her next week. But basically, what Kim did is kind of this, right? She had books previously published, but she was interested in self-publishing her latest book, right? Because she said, well, maybe I can make more money doing it this way. You can keep your copyrights. You don't have to sell your rights to the publisher. And so she said, okay, I'll try this, right? So what she did is her book, I don't know if she told you guys this yesterday, but her book is about a famous serial killer. Some people say the most notorious serial killer in world history. She allegedly killed something like 600 of her servant girls, right? And if you've seen the movie The Countess, that's all about her. If you've seen the movie Stay Alive, where they go into a video game, they go inside the video game and they battle her, Countess Bathory. The evil stepmother in Snow White is based on her. There's a lot of movies that came out in the 70s that were based on her. She's in Castlevania, for those of you that are old school Nintendo fans. And that's her, and that's what Kim's book is about. And Kim, being the lawyer that she is, she was interested in the legal aspects of it. So what she did is she went over to Europe and she was able to translate the court records, right? The court documents. And for the first time ever, put them in English. And that was kind of the big selling point of her book. And of course, like I said, around this time, 2009, there was a lot of true crime, a lot of vampire stories. The Twilight movies, things like that, were very popular. And so this kind of had a built in audience when you think about it, right? And what she did is she went back and she, like I said, examined the court records and looked at this historical figure, Countess Elisabeth Bathory, right? And like I said, she's the inspiration for the Wicked Queen in Snow White, or is it the stepmother? One or the other. There's a metal group named Bathory that's based on her. Lots of, like I said, B horror movies in the 1970s. There's one called Countess Dracula. There's one called Daughters of Darkness, and there's a few others that I'm drawing a blank on. But yeah, she's very popular in popular culture, basically, right? And so Kim did a SWOT analysis, right? She examined her strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And after doing some research, she decided to go with this print on demand company, right? And she chose CreateSpace. That's not an endorsement. You're welcome to choose whatever print on demand company fits your bill. There's no right or wrong answers. Those of you on the music side, you guys tend to like TuneCore. Some people prefer CD Baby. Some people prefer CreateSpace, but there's no right or wrong answer to all these things. It's just a matter of doing research. And let me just kind of also mention that for the online students, your discussion this week is to go and kind of investigate some print-on-demand companies. And we give you some there. We give you some examples, but you're welcome to go and do your own research and find out. And basically for your discussion, just talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of some of these print-on-demand companies, right? So Kim chose CreateSpace, but like I said, that's not necessarily a right answer. For you, maybe you want to choose a different print-on-demand company, but that's the one that she chose. And she had a brand. Now, keep in mind, she doesn't have to worry about copyright infringement for this because she took this image, and of course, this image is centuries old, right? So obviously, you guys had the law class with Cassie last month. I'm sure you're aware of the copyright laws. You don't have to worry about taking images that are this old. So she took this image, and this is the brand. This picture, what you see here, this is the cover of the book. This is also the cover, like the cover page of her website, and any kind of merchandise that she'll have, any type of newsletter. It's going to have this type of brand. And of course, you guys all had the branding class with Ken, right? And you know the importance of having one consistent brand, right? You don't want to have like a million different images of your products or sending like different messages to your customers, right? So she had one brand. She started a website. And today, I should say too that I don't know what Kim paid for the website back when she created this back in like 2010 or whatever it was, 2011. But today, just doing research myself, I know that you can find like web pages out there for as low as like $10 a year or something like that. Not even $1 a month. You can find maybe a little bit more than that, but I mean, like if you go to like GoDaddy.com or whatever, you can find cheap ways to get a website, and you might want to consider that for your product, whatever it is, right? And obviously, too, you want to start like a fan page. You want to start like a Facebook page. You want to have probably other social media like Twitter, things like that, right? And so if we go to her website, which I'm not going to do, but she'll probably take you to the website if she didn't already yesterday for you on-campus students. But if you go to that website, it's just like infamouslady.com, I think, right? If you go there, you will notice that it has that brand image, of course, like I said, this brand image, that image. And she also provides information to kind of set the hook, to hook the audience in, right? So you don't just want to have a blank web page, right? Or a web page that just has your product on there with a link to Amazon. You can, but I mean, to kind of get that hook, you do want to offer the customer something, right? You want to kind of pique their interest. So if you notice on her website, she provides information for the enthusiast, and it also offers reasons why her book is different, right? Because there's been a lot of research that's gone into Countess Bathory, and like I said, a lot of movies and lots of comic stories and things like that that are all based on Elizabeth Bathory. But the thing that separates Kim's book that she's offering that's unique is that her book is the first time that the court records were ever translated in English, right? So that's what she offers. That's what she emphasizes on her website. And then she offers things like what hers offer that others don't. So kind of like the inside story of the family, like Elizabeth Bathory's family, some of the politics that were happening in Hungary at the time, right? What makes her credible? Of course, Kim is a lawyer. She's very intelligent. She's a college professor, right? You want to have multiple ways to buy the book. So in other words, links to Amazon, a way for enthusiasts to join a mailing list, right? Join a club. And of course, what she did is she tried to aim for a strategic release. Now, in her case, this book is about this lesbian vampire, right? This historical lesbian vampire. So Halloween probably would have been the ideal time. I don't think she quite got it in at that time, but it was shortly after. It was like early November, right? But you want to try to aim for a specific release. So I don't know, hypothetically, let's just say you're doing some type of book or work that's based on Christianity or something, or has like Christian theme. Well, Christmas would be a good time to release it, right? Or Easter or something like that. And just in general, of course, the holiday season is a good time to release anything because that's when people buy the most stuff, right? So try to aim for a strategic release. And also, whoops, let me go back for a second. Okay, so also, the cool thing with print-on-demand companies is a good print-on-demand company, a company like CreateSpace or TuneCore or CD Baby or something like that, and many others, a good one will get you worldwide distribution, right? What I mean by that is that if you go to Amazon, if you do CreateSpace, CreateSpace is owned by Amazon, right? So if you go through CreateSpace and you get your product out there, guess what? It's going to be put on Amazon. Anybody in the world can order it then, right? So a good print-on-demand company will get you that, right? Or on the music side, a good print-on-demand company will get your stuff on iTunes, right? Some of them might be scams, but a good print-on-demand company will do that for you, right? So you want to do the research to make sure that your print-on-demand company will get you the right distribution channels that you need, ideally worldwide distribution, right? And also, a good one will get you expanded distribution. What that means is that basically, if you are ordering something from, it's not through Amazon, right? But let's just say that you use CreateSpace and your stuff is on Amazon. Okay, they will give you the option to get expanded distribution, which means that let's just say that somebody's on Barnes and Noble, right? Well, guess what? With expanded distribution, you can still sell through them. You won't make as much money as you would with Amazon because that's your direct distribution, but you still probably want expanded distribution, right? Because some money is better than nothing at all, right? So I think like hypothetically, I could be wrong on this and it changes all the time, but I think that like if you sell a book, a physical copy of a book on CreateSpace, I think that your royalties are about 40%. And also time out for a second. Keep in mind that when you guys did projects 1 and 2, remember that a typical agent is only going to give you 15%. So that's another reason why you might want to consider self-publishing because your print-on-demand company is going to get you a higher royalty rate, at least twice as much, right? So I think you get like 40% on a physical book. But expanded distribution, you might only get maybe 20%, but 20% is still better than nothing, right? I mean, you would want your customers to buy through Amazon, but still, though, if you get 20%, 20% is better than 0%, right? And also, the cool thing is that some of you might already know this on the music side, but I think like a company like TuneCore, and again, this changes all the time, but I think a company like TuneCore, for a digital copy, they might get you something like 92% or something like that royalty rate. In fact, it might even be some of these companies offer you like 100% royalty rate. You just have to sign up like a yearly fee or something like that, but you might get like 100% royalty rate for a digital copy, right? So that's something that you might want to consider. So in other words, like hypothetically, if you're selling a book, you would probably want to take the Kindle option, right? Because you actually make more money that way. I think Kindle, if you sell a physical or a book on through Kindle, an electronic copy, I think they'll give you almost like 70% royalties, something like that. So whatever the case might be, what you need to do for project three is, of course, to go ahead and do the research to find out which one is best for you, find out the royalty rates. Remember, the more specific you can be with project three, the better. And I'll show you some student examples here coming up. But just a few more things here. Um, you might want to consider like merchandise, like cafepress.com can get you, mugs, shirts, things like that. And what Kim did, of course, is she has a Facebook page and ad. I won't go into the analytics of this. You guys will get more into that next month with the digital marketing class. But I will just say, and maybe we'll talk more about this next week, but I will just say that a Facebook ad is something that you might want to consider. Yes, it costs money, but there's a cool thing with that though, because let's just say that you don't have a large budget, and let's just say that you want to only spend at the most, let's just say $60 a month. So that comes out to about $2 a day, right? And you're worried that like, well, they charge you by the click, right? So you think, oh, well, I don't want to do a Facebook ad because what if a million people click on it? Well, don't worry about that because you can set your meter to with the point where let's just say that it costs you 50 cents per click whenever every time somebody clicks on your ad. Well, you can get it to where your budget will only go to $2 a day because you can get it to where like if four people click, that brings it up to $2. After that, the ad will disappear. So you don't have to worry about your advertising budget going way over the top, right? And also the cool thing with Facebook is that, and again, this might be from a consumer standpoint, this might be a little bit of a violation of privacy, but the cool thing is that Facebook will let you have targeted ads, meaning that let's just say that you have some kind of product that is vampire related, like Kim's book. They can get you a list of people. They will only put your ad on people's page who like vampires, for example, something like that. So ethically, as a consumer, you might not like that, but as a marketer, it's something that might be really good for your campaign, basically. And so Kim also started like a community of Bathory scholars on Facebook. You want to use Twitter, blogs, web optimization. Kristen will tell you more about that next month. But you guys are probably familiar with like Google AdWords and things like that. Okay. So now for project three, where will you take your project? And that's what you guys need to do for project three. Okay, and before I get to the attendance questions here for you on-campus students, let me go ahead here and show you some examples of some project threes that we've had from previous classes, right? So let's just start here with, let's start out with, okay, so this is an example of, I think this is a, looks like somebody's trying to get in here. I don't know. Hold on, everybody. Time out. Hey, oh, okay. It looks like this is a. I don't know if this is a book or not. Let me go here and let's look at this example here. Okay, this is an example of a, as it says here, to educate and enlighten African American caregivers of children about different and real emotions. So it looks like this is, and I took the student's name out because of, for the sake of being anonymous here. And it looks like it's a nonfiction book, okay? So you can see here they provide a lot of detail, right? Their mission statement. Let me go ahead here and explain that the mission statement is not the mission for your company, okay? It's a little bit different than the business plan. This looks like a business plan here, but this is not a business plan. The mission statement is the mission for your product, whatever it is. So this could be the mission for your book. It could be the mission for your film. It could be the mission for your music project, whatever it might be. So that's what the mission statement is. Let me kind of blow this up a little bit bigger so you can see it here. Okay, so this is a nonfiction book, and the student it's called Where Did Grandma Go? And it seeks to educate and enlighten African American caregivers of children about different and real emotions regarding the concept of death. And actually, I remember this project. This was really good. This student was doing I think her daughter actually was devastated after her grandmother died. So her book project for Project 3 was to write a book about this, about how her daughter learned to cope with it, right? And so, again, we're not going to go through the whole content here, but you can see the mission statement is the mission of the book. Remember, not your company, but your book or your music project or your film, whatever it might be. And then you want to have the executive summary, just a little bit of information about yourself, right? And I mean, this student goes into a lot of detail here. You don't necessarily have to go into this much detail, but that's a good example of what you need to do for the executive summary. She provides her company description. Now, I should say that for this project, for Project 3, your company, you don't have to use your company that you're using for EBMS, like your final business plan. You could be a little bit hypothetical here, and you can make up a company if necessary. So, for example, if you just have like one book that you're trying to get across, well, you can invent your own company, right? So you could call this Jacques Publishing or something like that. It doesn't have to be your final business plan that you're doing for EBMS, okay? So you can invent that, but just talk a little bit about your company, where it might be based. The product itself is the actual work, right? The content. And let me take a time out here too as well and say that it's perfectly okay, and Cassie might not like this if she's hearing this, but it's perfectly okay to reuse some of the stuff that you used for Project 2. In other words, it's okay in this class to self-plagiarize some of your content here because it does overlap, right? The product that you're talking about for Project 3, it's the same exact product for Project 2, right? So it is okay if you reuse some of the same material here. Just like your executive summary, a lot of this could actually be a lot of what you talked about for your biography for Project 2, right? So keep that in mind, okay? So it's okay. Now, in this case, like, just talk a little bit about the product here. Like, what is it? Is it a CD? Is it a book? Here she talks about the table of contents. So she breaks it up into chapters. And also she as she says here, included with the book is going to be a 2-disc music compilation. So this is kind of a combination of a book as well as a music project. I mean, this is really ambitious, but you don't have to do something like this, but that's what she did, right? Okay, now I will say for Project 3 that if you want to get a really good grade for this project, the manufacturing and distribution strategy is the most important part of Project 3. Let me just repeat that. The manufacturing and distribution strategy is the most important section for Project 3. This is the main thing. And I think it says in the instructions for Project 3 that the manufacturing, it might be different than the distribution. Like there might be a manufacturing section and distribution, but here's the cool thing with the print on demand. Your print on demand company will be both, a lot of times a good one, will be both your manufacturer and distributor. Okay, what I mean by that is that if you go through like a company like CreateSpace, right, they're going to manufacture your CDs if you're on the music side, and they're going to get your stuff on iTunes, and they're also going to distribute them, right, through Amazon or through external channels. But you don't have to worry about distributing, right, because they're going to do both. So your manufacturer and distributor is going to be your print-on-demand company for most of you. Now, in this case, she uses, what do you pronounce this, Ex Libris or something like that. That's kind of a controversial. I would actually recommend a different print-on-demand company myself, but that's okay though. That's okay. Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer to this. But you see here, what I mean by this is that she says that they're going to offer this package for about $3,000. I personally would stay away from this company myself. You can do it if you want, but I mean, you can go through a company like CreateSpace and do the same thing for about $40, right? And they might not offer you this package, but I mean, you can do it, a lot of these things yourself, right? So that's okay though. She chose that company and she just explains it. You can choose any company that you want as long as you justify it, as long as you explain it. She goes through the financial stuff here. She figures out her royalty rate. And let me also give you a tip for Project 3. Sometimes the students that don't do as well on Project 3, they get to this section of manufacturing and distribution and they just say, well, I'm going to use CD Baby, something like that. But the students that do really well on Project 3 are the ones that go through this section and will actually go through the financials, and they'll figure out the royalty rates. They will figure out and explain how much it's going to cost per unit and how much money they're going to make per unit sold and things like that. Okay. So the more detail that you can provide for this section, the better you're going to do. And just to reiterate, this section is the most important part of Project 3. Okay, next, but probably the second most important part is the marketing and promotion. And once again, you can reuse a lot of the same stuff that you did for Project 2 for this section. I mean, don't make it verbatim, but I mean, it's perfectly okay if you're going to talk about some of the same strategies that you did for Project 2 for the marketing and promotion, okay? So in this case, she talks about, social media, an official page. If you want to talk about maybe, I don't know, hypothetically, radio stations, or maybe if you are willing to do interviews and things like that, that would be okay. She's going to use Twitter, and she goes through a lot of detail here. And she talks about radio ads, things like that. In her case, the subject matter for this case would have a good market, I think, with gospel stations. So she points that out. Just the one thing in terms of stylistic here, just in terms of writing, this doesn't have to be an APA, but I would still remember to either do one of two things here. I would either have the paragraphs be separated by a space like that, or at least do this, at least indent the paragraphs. So that's not like just one block here. If you look on the left side here, it's just like one block all the time. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that's the book side. Okay, so let me move this over here, and let's look at this one. This is, let me blow this up. This is a music example for Project 3. And as you can see here, I blocked the student's name out again just to be anonymous here, but they talk about the mission of the music here. This is actually an example of something that the student could have done better, because here the mission is they're talking about the artist's music. In general, for Project 3, what you want to do here, in fact, this is kind of an example of something that you might want to consider of trying to avoid certain parts of this. Because you can see here, the company's product consists of exceptional music from bands all over the world. Okay, this is an example of something that's well written here, but for Project 3, you want to avoid, when possible, trying to manufacture and distribute a multitude of different endeavors. You want to kind of stick to like one basic project. Basically, the project that you did for Project 2 is what you want to do here. Okay, so for this example, this person is talking about the record company in general or the artist in general. You probably want to make it a little bit more specific than that, right? The executive summary looks good, though. He talks about his background, his education, his credentials. He talks about the company, right? The product itself should be a little bit more specific than this, right? Because he's talking about the artist's music in general, but try to be more specific. Try to have a specific project in mind there. But the reason why I pulled this example is because he does do a good job with this part here, the manufacturing and distribution, right? He's going to use CD Baby. He compares it to TuneCore. He says here that the artist can retain 100% royalties, charges a 9% fee, and goes through the financials pretty good here, right? And it kind of justifies it. So that's a good example of what you should be thinking about for this, right? And he talks about what he's going to set the price to be, right? So digital downloads will be $9.99 per album. That's about standard these days, and 99 cents per single, right? So pretty good. And he even, now this is a little bit, a lot. You don't really have to do this much, but he also provides like sales figures, right? And sales projections, things like that. And it actually includes a screenshot of why he's using CD Baby. So this might actually be right from CD Baby's website here. In fact, it is from cdbaby.com. But this is a pretty good illustration of why he chose CD Baby over TuneCore. And again, you can choose TuneCore over CD Baby. There's no right or wrong answer, but just kind of explain why you chose that, okay? So that's why I brought this example up, because it's a pretty good job of the manufacturing and distribution here, of explaining the financials and things like that. And then he also does a pretty good job with the marketing, right? He goes through details about how he's going to use like Google Hangouts and Q&A sessions, um, Facebook, things like that. He talks about demographics, which is good too. Like, who is your target market, right? And if you're going to be using some type of advertising channel, explain why, if you can, why that channel is going to be good for the target market, right? And define who your target market is, right? So really good job of the manufacturing, distribution, and also the marketing here. And then he even includes a logo. I mean, you don't have to. Some of you might have a logo. And he sums it up with a brief conclusion, okay? Let's take a look here at another one here. This is an example of, let's see here. And it looks like this one is let me scroll down to the product here. Okay, it's a short film. That's right. I remember this one. Okay, so yeah, it's a short film. You don't really need a cover page. That's not necessary, but you're certainly welcome to have one if you want. And he just talks about the film here, what it's about. So the mission, remember, it's the mission of the project here, not the company, but the project. And then he talks about biography, remember, that's what your executive summary should be. Then company description, you can make this stuff up. Then the product itself, it's a short film, and it's a story about family, love, death, and the life after. And again, he goes through the content here. We're not going to go through the content here, but manufacturing distribution, he's going to use CreateSpace for this one, right? And explains why he's going to use CreateSpace. So actually, he even says too that it's going to be sold in hard copy as well as digital format. That's one thing that you really want to specify. I assume that most people are probably going to do both, but you definitely at least want to mention that. You know, we're going to use hard copies as well as electronic copies. And then once again, he does a good job here of explaining the royalty rates, the cost per unit, the projections. You don't have to really go through sales projections and things like that, but kind of explaining that. Could have maybe provided even a little bit more detail in this section, but still pretty nice job. Then he goes through a marketing and promotion. He's going to create a web page. He's going to have the web page is going to include contact information, which will allow customers to have or ask any questions or concerns. And then he's going to use social media sites, YouTube. A lot of you would probably want to put together like a promotional piece that you can throw up on YouTube for free, right? Instagram, things like that. And then a brief conclusion. So maybe a little bit more detail could have provided there, but still pretty nice job, right? And then finally, let's go back to this one. Okay, it's a reality show. Okay, I remember this one now. The reality of property. Okay, okay. I remember this. Okay, so it's a reality show. And actually, this is actually a pretty decent show, actually, a pretty decent idea for a show, I think. And once again, though, the mission statement, I just want to emphasize, it's the mission of the show, right? What's it going to do? So in this case, the audience will get a behind the scenes look at the multi-million dollar assets, right? The executive summary, that's kind of again, just a brief biography. The company description, it could be a real company or a made up company. The product itself is the show in this case, and kind of explains what the show is. Now, in this case, he's using this company, which I don't really know too much about, but nonetheless, that's okay though. Some of these companies are new. It's just a matter of if you can kind of explain what they are, right? Now, this one, it's founded in 2009 to help film and small to medium-sized film distributors, sales agents, dependent producers, things like that. And just kind of explains, like as he says here, Amazon and more can be added for $250 per outlet and get 100% of receipts. Now, again, maybe a little bit more detail could have been provided there. Okay, then he talks about marketing and promotion, social media, which we'll actually talk a little bit more about next week, about social media marketing and things like that. But you want to talk about your marketing strategy. Once again, these things can repeat. So this one was actually pretty good. It was a pretty good idea for a show, but some of the stuff he could have even gone into a little bit more detail, especially with the manufacturing and distribution a little bit more there. Although it's not bad though. Okay, and that might be all the examples I have. So let's go right into the attendance questions here. So for you on-campus students, once again, this question comes up sometimes from online students that might be listening to this, maybe on the archives. This is only for the on-campus students, okay? The online students do not have to answer this. This little attendance assignment here takes the place of a couple other classes that got removed, actually, because it used to actually be 14 classes. Now it's just 12. So as a result, they make the on-campus students attend the go-to sessions and make them answer these questions. So you online students, you don't have to worry about this. And this is real easy anyways. But let's go through these. Okay. Number one, how many blog posts will you need to submit? Of course, the answer is 2, right? Some other classes, it's 1, but for this class, it's 2. Number 2, what can you discuss in your posts? And here, let me go ahead here and I'll even type in the answers for you, okay? So there's 2 for number 1. What can you discuss in your posts? Anything related to the entertainment world, right? Anything that's going on in entertainment business. Okay? It does not have to relate to this class. Number 3, is it acceptable to submit your blogs by links, hard copy, or both? Well, the answer to that would be either, basically, either. But actually for you online students, if possible, try, just for the sake of simplicity, just go ahead and, even if you're going to submit a link, just go ahead and put that on a Microsoft Word document and submit that through FSO. Just because if you try to send them through email, sometimes, I mean, most of the time it's going to be fine, but just to avoid any kind of, in case like we forget or something like that, or it gets lost in the inbox, just go ahead and just submit it through FSO. Just copy and paste the link. You don't have to, copy the text or anything like that, but just copy and paste the link to your blog. And also, I will just say, just because this came up today, and just for the purposes of next month's class, because Kristen was asking about this, try not to put your blogs on Google Plus, just because, I'm not sure with exactly how Google Plus works. I mean, I know what it is, but I don't know how I don't use it that often. But Kristen was saying that some student from last month was putting their blogs on Google Plus, and it doesn't transfer over well to the assignment that you have to do next month. So just make sure that you have your blog on like some kind of site. All right. So as opposed to just putting that on Google Plus. Are both posts due at the same time? Well, yes, but I mean, if you do one today and you send an email and you do one tomorrow, that's fine. But if that's the case though, try to just do one today, put it on a Microsoft Word document, and then do the one tomorrow and put that on the same document and then send the one document. So that's probably the best way to answer that. But yes, they are due at the same time, right? How long should the posts be? Remember, at least 300 words, right? Are sources and citations required? Well, put it this way, technically no, but it's not just no, it's no, or put it this way, not necessarily, but if a source is used, then it must be cited, right? That's a good way to answer that question. And pretty much, I would say in the vast majority of blogs, pretty much you almost always, not always, but very often you do use some kind of outside source. Usually it's not just kind of stream of conscious writing that you do for your blogs. Usually you're basing it on some kind of article that you read or something. So in most cases, you do use some kind of external source. So you just have to cite that basically. And you don't have to do like MLA or APA. Just you can just literally copy and paste the URL. That's fine. Or if you're HTML savvy or just web savvy in general, and you want to, like on your blog, if you put like a link and you can link that article within the text, then you can do that as well. That's fine, just as long as you're citing it in some way, right? So technically there's no sources required for that, but I mean, if you do use sources, which most people do, then make sure that it's cited, okay? Number 7, in project 3, what is the purpose of the business strategy? And the answer to this is kind of a succinct way to put this is to explain how you can get the content either out there and we'll say and published, we'll say and self-published and distributed. I mean, basically you're trying to get your stuff out there doing it yourself, if that makes sense. Whereas project 2 was about getting it out there, but with the use of an agent, right? So project 3 is getting it out there, but doing it yourself. So self-publishing, self-distribution. Okay, number 8. Okay, the business strategy has many of the same sections as a what? The answer is, of course, a business plan. It does have very similar, very close, it's very close to a business plan, right? The difference though is that, remember, like for the mission statement, you're doing the mission for the content, not the business. But still though, it does have very much the same kind of format as a business plan. It has the same sections. It has like it has like a marketing strategy. It has executive summary. It has a conclusion, things like that, and target audience, things. So it does have a lot of the same sections as a business plan, although it's slightly different, but still though, nonetheless, right? Number 9, what is the page requirement for the business plan? The answer is there is none, right? But one little sort of caveat with that though, one little warning is that there's no page requirement, but in general, I can just tell you the students that do well in this project tend to have theirs come in about 4 to 5 pages, right? Or at least 3 to 4 pages, we'll say single spaced or something like that, right? Usually the more detail that you can provide, particularly in the manufacturing and distribution section, the better that you will do on this project. And I really can't emphasize that enough. I mean, if you really want to get an A, then try to pay real close attention to that manufacturing and distribution strategy and try to be as detailed as possible. Talk about the cost per unit. Talk about your royalty rates that you're going to get with the print-on-demand company. Talk about the distribution channels that your print-on-demand company will give you. Things like that. The more detail that you can provide, the better that you're going to do on project 3. But that being said, the answer to number 9 is there is none, right? And then number 10, where can you find a template of the business strategy? Well, you could provide one, of course, in the resources, the course resources, the references, I mean, whatever you want to call it. You can also find one in the textbook, right? Or in the appendix of the textbook, right? And that pretty much answers, and I saw that Corey just stepped in, so welcome, Corey, but unfortunately we're about done here. But I'm going to go ahead and try to put this in the archives. If you are coming in late or you're watching this later in the archives, we had some technical problems in the beginning. So what I'm going to do is that, first of all, assuming that this archives okay, I'll try to cut that first part out. And then second of all, if you're coming in late or just a heads up, we've been having a lot of trouble with the archives lately. just because the files are becoming so large for some reason in the last, we'll say, month and a half or so. I'm not sure if it's a go-to session problem or if it can't be a networking problem. So I don't know what the problem is. So we've been having some trouble with the archives. But that being said, if you're ever having trouble with the archives, then keep in mind that you can always go back to a previous month. They're pretty much all the same. Anytime that we change material, then we'll always go back and we'll change the archives and we'll get new archives up. So you can always go back and check out some of the old archives. At this point, they're all the same, pretty much. And that being said, we'll still try to put this one up tonight. And then also just a heads up to next week's session, and there'll be an announcement about this as well. But next week's go-to session will not be on Tuesday, just because I have to go out to UCF Tuesday night. But it'll probably be on Wednesday night, probably 6 o'clock. But just look for an announcement about that. So that's just a heads up. So at this point, let me just ask in the chat box here, does anybody have any last minute questions before we go ahead and close this out for tonight? And of course, if something comes up later and you're not sure, then just feel free to send an email to Kim or I. I know that this is kind of a weird week with the Hall of Fame because you on-campus students, like, we're done, right? Ordinarily, we see you guys tomorrow and also Friday, but because of the Hall of Fame, we don't have class the rest of this week, actually. So we just have class next Monday. So that being said, remember that the Project 3 isn't due until the end of the session, or at the end of the month, I should say. So you still don't have anything due this week, with the exception of what the blogs for you online students and the discussion, of course. But Project 3 is not due this Sunday, so you still have an extra week. Right. So so just keep that in mind. But that being said, if anything comes up before then, if you have any questions, just feel free to let Kim or I know, and we'll be happy to answer anything that you might have. Okay, so if that's it, I'll go ahead and I will close this down. I'll try to put up the archives, and I want to thank everybody for attending. Jacques, Corey, and Jesse, and like I said, we'll see you guys next Wednesday night at the go-to session. You on-campus students will see you Monday, right? So I guess that's it. It looks like there's no questions on the board, so I'm going to go ahead here and let me go ahead here and stop the recording right now.